February 25th, 2021, I touched down on the continent of Africa for the very first time. 1,686 days later, and I've learned one thing. Living in Africa is tough. Shalom, my name is No Limit Eddie, an American who moved to Africa at 21 years old. I've documented the entire 4-year journey right here on this YouTube channel to make your move to Africa even easier. If that's interesting to you, drop a like on today's video. I'm going to be sharing these things from things that I have experienced personally or things that I've seen other people like in my network experience. Okay, so the first thing we're going to start off with is immigration. This is one of the reasons why moving to Africa is quite hard. You see, as an African American, we live in this weird dichotomy where we're too quote unquote African to be fully American, and we're too American to be actually African, right? And so in America, they look at us as like, we're citizens, yes, but we're a lower ranked citizen than, let's say, a white American. When we come to Africa, yes, they see like we have heritage that belongs here, but your passport and your birth certificate and your language is you are an American. And so the way this plays in is that when we want to relocate to the continent of Africa, we almost kind of feel in a way that there should be an easier process for us African Americans to kind of move and relocate to the continent. And so usually they treat us just as like a regular white American would. So we need to get tourist visas and entry visas, and we got to find a way to get residency. And to get residency, a lot of times you need to get a business, or you need to get married, or you need to do these different things that can be a bit cumbersome on the typical African American. Like our whole lives, we never actually worried about immigration. We never worried about residency. We just were born and we live. Like because of that, when we end up moving to these countries, we usually cannot own property, right? We can't own a house, or we can't own land, or if we can own a house and we can own land, there's some type of stipulations, like you can only own it for 99 years or 49 years, and it may not be renewable. And they kind of keep us at a level to where we never really become citizens. The infrastructure. You see, in the States, we're quite used to things just working, right? Like when things don't work, that is like, whoa, things are not working. That's an exception. And when things do work, that's what we expect. For water and power and roads, we pretty much always expect when I go to the faucet, I'm gonna switch this thing and water's gonna come out, right? Or when I wake up in the morning, I'm gonna switch on a light switch and a light is gonna come on. I can say, even in the most developed countries in Africa, you are going to experience massive amount of power outages. You're going to experience massive amount of water cuts and water outages. And it's not because the continent doesn't have the ability to constantly have power, to constantly have water. It's just usually mismanagement. Okay, now this video is all about things that make living in Africa challenging, okay? But one thing that will make living anywhere in the world challenging is not having enough money, okay? So look, one thing about it is I've been living abroad, traveling abroad full time for the last 4+ years. And I've only been able to do that, first and foremost, all praise to the Most High Yah. And secondly, because he allowed me to discover how to generate an income online. I created a 10-minute training video that breaks it all down. Click the very first link in this video description to check it out. It's 100% free and it's only 10 minutes of your time. Trust me, it's worth it. The States, it's a culture that when you work, you just do the work properly. On a continent, that culture is not so much there, right? It's not that they're not hardworking people or anything like that, but it's more so a laid back, carefree attitude that extends the entire continent. The only place that I've gone to where the water and the power is like consistent pretty much all day, every day throughout the year is Egypt, right? And many people try to say that Egypt is not even Africa, but clearly it is. And so when a lot of Americans come to the continent of Africa, they're also dealing with like roads that are made out of mud for the first time. I'm talking about like the moment it rains, you may not even, if you're not careful, I talk about this in my Ultimate African Relocation Guide, link in the description. But if you're not careful with where you choose your house, when it rains, you can almost be blockaded from even entering into your home again. Because no boda driver is going to go to that road. No tuk-tuk driver is going to go on that road. It's the water is so high, you don't even want to walk there. You're going to be like, walking through all kind of nonsense. And it's also very slippery too. So be mindful of that. Like we're just so used to proper drainage systems and proper sewer systems. Like These places experience a lot of times far more rain than we did, even in like LA, but their systems of dealing with the rain are like somehow very rudimentary. These things are shocks, or these things are reasons why people actually prefer not to live on the continent. This point right here is one that is important, and that is finances. For the most part, being broke in America is not that big of a deal. However, being broke overseas, especially in Africa, is a huge deal, in particular as an American or a Westerner. You see, because when you are in the States, you're a citizen. So it doesn't matter, okay, I'm broke, I don't have that much money. You can stay with your family for a time. You can stay with your friends for a time. You can go to a temp agency and get yourself a little, small 1-2 job. However, when you're on a continent, where I talked about in an earlier point with immigration, you're not a citizen. Most people are there on tourist visas, or they're extending a tourist visa. Maybe they have residency, but it's usually rare. And even with a residency, that doesn't typically offer you the ability to work legally within that country. So that is a big thing that causes a lot of people to like run back to the States super quickly, is that now clearly, right, I've been living abroad for 4+ years, and I don't, work 9 to 5 jobs here on a continent. So how exactly do I make money, and how have I been making money? Well, I recorded a 10-minute training video, if you have that question, that reveals exactly what I've been doing and even how you can do the same thing yourself. Okay, now that video is free. No email, no phone number. Just click the link in the description, watch the video. And if it seems like something that you can do or that you would like to do, you can book in a time to speak with me by clicking that big green button, or we can talk about us potentially working together. Okay, now on top of this, when it comes to finances, like I've seen people who are residents go out and get a job in these foreign countries illegally. The wages that these people are paying you, $150 for a month, $300 for the month, is so low that like sometimes I'm surprised that people actually accept the jobs. Right? The amount of work that they're making you do for the little pay is usually only taken out of a place of desperation. You should not move to the continent based only on savings. You have to, I'm telling you right now, find a way to generate income while you are living abroad or while you are traveling abroad. This is one thing that I think can be underestimated, the lack of that family unit, the lack of that support system. And I made a video talking about why I left Egypt. And again, Egypt is one of my favorite countries. It's still the country I recommend the most for an African American looking to move abroad to relocate to, just because, and this is just like a tangent, there's a lot of people who are like, if you love Egypt so much, why are you no longer living? What I want people to understand is that my favorite food on earth may be tacos. I may love tacos. That may be the best food I've ever eaten. But does that mean I then have to eat tacos every day for all 3 meals for the rest of my life? No, right? That would be complete and utter insanity. So just because something is your favorite, just because something is the best in your honest opinion, doesn't mean you have to partake in it every day, all day, and you can partake in nothing else. Because there's a time where, okay, let's say you have a cold. The best food for you at that moment in time may be what? A soup, right? But tacos are my favorite, so I gotta eat a taco when I'm sick. No, understanding that, pushing into context. People are sometimes so boxed in to think you have to live in only one country, you have to live in only one city, you have to have only one apartment. When in reality, you can live across multiple countries, have multiple apartments, have multiple favorites, right? Favorites in different categories, okay? But I made a video about like why I left Egypt. There's a fly, I'm here on my balcony. I talked about the fact that there was no expat population. And people were like, well, just hang around locals, hang around locals, hang around locals. I've had a lot of local friends. I still have local friends in the country of Egypt. If I were to go back today, I'd have a friend group in Egypt, right? But not an expat community in Egypt. And that's a big difference. You see, the Bible often compares us to sheep. And sheep are animals that depend on a flock. A sheep can hang around chickens, and it can hang around donkeys, and it can hang around other turkeys. It can hang around other farm animals. However, you cannot get a single sheep and put them into a field of those other various animals and say, this is your flock. The sheep won't do very well. The sheep will be very stressed. The sheep need to be in their fold, okay? When they're not inside their fold, things become chaotic. Here in Uganda, I don't really have a large expat community, but you don't need one, because I've realized that most people, the Bantu tribes for the most part, are very similar in humor and very similar in character. The energy flows the same throughout us people. I'm hanging around, let's say for example, a Nigerian, or I'm hanging around a Muganda, or I'm hanging around a Mutoro. It feels like we're the same. Yeah, it's important, right, to kind of have that community, kind of have that friendship with other people. And so that's one of the things that you do have to prioritize in the country you're moving to, is like, are the people there, if you're going to be hanging around mostly locals, are the people there similar to you in value, similar to you in humor, similar to you, right? There's always going to be cultural differences, but are they similar enough to you to where like you don't feel like you are missing your fold or your flock of people? I can say, for example, when you're in the States and you see somebody dressing in certain clothes, even though they may be black, dressing in certain clothes, walking even a particular way, you can see, he's not from here, right? You can see that. And the same thing is true here. For example, I have shoes, all right? I walk around in some shoes, da 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 da. When it rains here, it gets muddy. My shoes, I'm talking about, will be 360, 180, 720 covered in mud. And it doesn't matter how carefully I walk, it's always happening. There will be children, even 5 years old, 6 years old, okay, that can walk in sandals and there will not be a speck of dirt on their toes. I do not know how they're doing it. I do not know the strategy, the technique, that they're floating on top of the water that's in the mud and they're separating nucleuses. I don't know how they're doing it. And so there's just things, right? Small things, small nuanced things that we can't even pick up on, that do separate us as different people. And so when you're here on the continent, you're going to be called things like a Muzungu, right? A Mzungu, which is like it's technically, they say it means foreigner, but usually it means like white person. You're going to sometimes maybe be singled out, and that can be for a positive or a negative thing, but people will know that not that you don't belong here, that's not the right way to say it, but they'll know you're not from wherever you're at, okay? And in some places, this is a lot worse than others, right? In some places where they're not so nice to foreigners, or they're not so nice to tourists, or they're not so nice to outsiders, right, where they're very standoffish and cold, you're going to have a more negative experience. In places to where maybe they're actually very warm to foreigners, they're very warm to tourists, you might even have a much more pleasant experience, right?
YouTube thinks this is the very best video on my channel for you to watch next. Click it and see if they're right. Other than that, see you all in the next one. Yah willing. Shalom.